your shoes, step on marble stone. Voices cold as ice, hearts of stone. Every not's a pact, every glance a knife. This is not a game, it's the way of life. All the bosses men, they never fall, standing tall behind the curtain's call, loyal to the oath till the bitter end. This is how it goes with all the bosses men.
Either you're going to be proud of who you are and fight for it, or you're going to be ashamed of it. It's obvious what I've done is obvious what I created. I'm not a jerk. If I drew a picture, I know I drew that picture. I created that. I know what I created, you know what I mean?
All the bosses men, they never fall, standing tall behind the curtain's call, loyal to the oath till the bitter end. This is how it goes with all the bosses men.
All right, we are live once again with Lewis Kasman. Hope everyone is doing good. Lewis, how are you, man?
Okay, Jesse, good evening. Hope
Good evening
everybody's
to you.
good. Look forward to a good program this evening. Hope I can answer everybody's questions.
Yeah, we've got about a little bit over 50 people. We'll give it just a minute, let people slowly join us. So what's been going on, Lewis?
Oh, same old stuff. Did you see? I don't know if you read the New York Post. There was an article in the New York Post today about some of
Yeah,
the
I believe I
grandchildren.
did see that.
Yeah, some of the grandchildren. If you have it, maybe you could put it up.
Yeah, I think I've got it somewhere here. Let me see what we got. Let's see.
Yeah, it was today's paper.
Yeah, I think I saved that because I saw that earlier.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. I'm sure that if John Gotti was here, he would not be happy with any of this. But the headline was Queen's grandma is mystery woman slugged by Gotti's grandsons in mob justice tune-up.
Yeah, well, I don't, I know what the Post says. I wasn't there, obviously, but I doubt that the grandsons hit the grandmother. I think that probably happened in the excitement of it all, of them going after that kid that robbed them or allegedly robbed the mother-in-law or whatever the story was there. I don't think they deliberately went to hit that Queen's grandma as the Post portrayed it. But and one thing I will say, Vicky, their mother, raised three good kids. I mean, she was an excellent mother. The dinners, just how she raised them. I mean, she raised them basically alone. And she, from what I could see, she did a pretty good job. So I don't know the whole facts of what really happened and who stole what or whatever, but I doubt that they went there to assault the grandmother. I think probably she just got in the mix of it all and got and got hit. I would think that was an accident. That wasn't deliberate.
Right.
But
Yeah.
When you ask what would be, obviously if John was alive, none of this ever would have went on, because number one, the kid that did the stealing never would have stole.
Yeah.
And so it would have been a non-entity. But you see what the thing is, and I guess it could be said of me too. John's day came and went. Yeah, he's an international figure. Everybody will know John for 100 years from now, or like John would say, for the next 5,000 years, because that's who John was. There'll never be a John Gotti in the history of organized crime. So, the kids, hey, I'm John Gotti's grandson, so, I'll do what I want. But, unfortunately, those days came and went, and John passed away in 2002. So, but it's very hard to move on, Jesse. It's very, very hard to, because, he, these were Victoria's kids. Victoria, the daughter of John.
Yeah, John Gotti himself, he left a huge impact, with the relationships that he had with family and friends, and, a huge impact.
Exactly. And, and they, like other people, live in that. Unfortunately, it's the past, and we all know if John Gotti was alive, this never would have taken place.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like, it's very hard to move on. John had such an impact on everybody, on Junior, on me, on the kids, on Vicky, on Angel. He was such a strong presence. And no matter what was going on, he always put, he made you feel better. No matter how much chaos or problems any of us would have in our lives, he fixed it. He took care of it, and he made us feel better. Yeah.
Yeah. I think just to follow up on what you said, I don't think that it was intentional for this lady to get struck.
No, absolutely not. And the lawyer's comment, I don't know if you have the whole article. The lawyer that they use, made a very, very poor comment, and very arrogant kind of comment. I'm sure John Jr. will take him to task over that. So, that's what was good, Jesse, about Bruce Cutler. He knew what to say. He knew how to say it because he read John.
Yeah.
See, that's the whole thing. He read John. This lawyer doesn't know John. This lawyer never even met John. So, he gave a stupid comment, and I'm sure John Jr. is going to, reprimand him for that because that comment was out of order.
Yeah, I'll have to. I didn't write that down. I just saved a piece from the Post that says, the first couple of paragraphs. A Queen's grandma has been identified as the mystery woman who was accidentally struck in June by two grandsons of the late Teflon Don, John Gotti, while the men were violently attacking her son, the Post has learned. And it goes on to talk about her trying to be peacemaker and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think it was just an unintentional thing.
The story's a non-story. If it was John Smith,
right,
and Lefty Smith, it's a non-story.
Yeah,
this is not this happened 3 months ago, and they wrote about it, and they're writing about it again because it sells newspapers. Anything with a Gotti, they want to read, they want to find out.
Yeah.
So but I mean, it's really a non-story. So,
but I think we spoke about that before. If it was anyone else, we wouldn't be talking about it.
No,
it wouldn't be in the paper.
Definitely not. And and like I said, the lawyer that is representing the boys in this gave a very inappropriate, unprofessional, comment. That that's be a lawyer, don't be a thug. There's enough thugs. Be a lawyer. Know your place, know your job, and do your job.
Yeah, I agree. We've got about 115 people in here. I want to welcome a few people into the chat, and just throw this out there real quick. We welcome everyone to watch. I want people to be able to ask you questions, but we got to keep it to legitimate questions and legitimate statements, comments, or else, we're going to have to notify the moderators because it ties up the chat and doesn't allow people to be able to ask questions. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick and welcome in a few people. The Truth, thanks for being here, man. We got Puppet Master. He says, yo. 10 Pill TV. Hello, Jesse. Thank you for being here, man. Stephen Marinello, great content on this channel. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Here's a good one here.
Which one is that, Lewis?
He's A777 at 713.
I'm a little bit behind.
That's all right.
Let's see. Yeah, let's check it out, and then I got a couple other things I wrote down I want to ask you about, Lewis.
All
But
right. Check out
let's
this.
see.
This is a very good question.
A777. You got any opinion on Judge Gleeson? I think he was biased for the prosecution. I think he was once a prosecutor himself. I think they're going to get you started, Lewis.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let me tell everybody about John Gleeson. Before John Gleeson was a judge, he was a prosecutor. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was on the case with that Diane Jack alone, and that's where John and Bruce Cutler and everybody really abused her, took her to task, and they ultimately, the jury came back not guilty. Of course, everybody says the jury was fixed. Whatever. I don't know if anybody got indicted for that. So, but Gleeson is a very, very sick man. Gleeson's sister's husband's cousin was related to John Gotti. If everybody could get what I just said, and Gleeson never disclosed that publicly. I believe he disclosed that to Judge Rabbi I. Leo Glasser. I believe he covered his bases, Gleeson. So we all know what happened with Diane Jack alone, and that case, not guilty. Then we go fast forward. Gleeson and a guy by the name of Jamie Orenstein are the prosecutors on the case before Judge Glasser, with a female attorney who is now a criminal court judge in Manhattan, Supreme Court Judge Laura Ward, whose father at that time happened to be a federal judge in the Southern District. Very tough judge, but very fair. So Gleeson had this complex with Giacalone, whether his mother, I don't know what the thing was, and he wanted to make it right. So Gleeson played dirty because he knew that's the only way he was going to win that case. However, Gleeson, now I'm leaving out all the wiretaps. I'm leaving out everything else. We're just talking about Gleeson, the person. So Gleeson never discloses the relationship. And we had a lot of good information on Andrew Maloney, who was then the United States Attorney in the East. And John would not let it be disseminated. He refused. He says, we don't play that way. Don't do it. If we had it to do over, we would have disseminated that. Okay. But, John wanted to play it his way. So long and short of that part of the story is case goes to trial. And of course, everybody knows Gravano flips. And they banned me from the courtroom, except for the last 2 weeks when John goes head to head with Judge Glasser. And then Judge Glasser says, okay, we're going to let Kasman in. After he goes to Gleeson and says, are you bringing Kasman in as a witness? And he says, no, we changed our mind. He was never bringing me in. He just wanted to keep me out of the courtroom.
Yeah.
And so the case progresses along. Now they're summing up. And of course, they play the tapes and they have that puke on the stand. And puke equals Gravano. They play, and now Andrew Maloney, the U.S. attorney, stands up and tells the jury, I'm taking it out of text a little bit, so don't everybody jump on me. If you don't convict him, your lives are in danger. Now, in any courtroom in America, I don't care if you're in Mississippi, if you're in Kansas, if they don't even know how to spell Gotti, okay, if there's no Italians living in that town, a statement like that made by the United States attorney himself, there's a mistrial. You're telling the juries, you got to convict this guy or your lives are in danger. That's what the United States attorney said. Well, Gleeson had a baby. Gleeson went crazy. He didn't know what he was going to do now but Glasser should have declared a mistrial. But Glasser, Rabbi Glasser, no, you could say whatever you want. We're going to get Mr. Gotti this time. We got to get him. And and so they convicted him as a reward for John Gleeson. Now, keep in mind, John Gleeson indicts me for perjury. And Judge Glass is my judge. Isn't that convenient? It didn't go back into the wheel because what they call related case. So when it's a related case, they keep all the Gambinos together. So
Yeah.
they said, you're a Bambino or a Gambino, and we're going to keep you with all the Bambinos. So Glass is my judge. They asked me 2 questions in the grand jury. Now, let me see how smart Tin Pail is. They asked me, 1, do you know if John Gotti's the boss of the Gambino family? My answer is, he never told me, but I know what I read. I know what I see. 1. 2, do you know that Jackie D'Amico, also known as Jackie Knows, is a captain? Now, does anybody think Jackie Knows ever sat down and says to me, Lewis, by the way, I'm a captain?
Yeah.
You know these things. When you're somebody that's as close to John as I was, don't you think I know who was an associate, who was a member, who was a captain, who was a colonel? You just know it. Those were the only 2 questions they asked me, and they dismissed me. Okay, we heard enough from you. Now, Gleeson says to me one day in the hall, I'm pacing. This is before Glass issues his order to let me back in. Gleeson says to me, I'm going to indict you. I'm getting you. Now, the executive assistant United States attorney, who was a very nice guy, and he hated Gleeson. You got to understand, Gleeson had no friends in that office. Everybody hated Gleeson. So they would talk. You'd be in the elevator, you'd be in the men's room, you'd be in the cafeteria. You'd see all these people, and you would hear them talk. And they would talk loud enough, so if I was standing next to them, they would hear. So the executive assistant United States attorney says to me, he says, you better watch yourself, Lewis. This guy's coming after you. And I said to myself, he asked me 2 questions. They're going to so Glass, in fact, my probation officer, Leslie Arkwood, says to me, you mean they didn't know John was the boss of the family? But that's what they indicted him. That was what the RICO was. So Glasser, he had to cover his base, Rabbi Glasser, he says in courtroom when he sentences me, he says, I find it hard to believe. And Orenstein was my prosecutor, Gleason's fair-haired boy, his boyfriend, Jamie Orenstein. He says, I find it hard to believe that you didn't know who the boss of the Gambino family was. And you needed Mr. Kasman to tell you. So my lawyer, Mike Rosen, jumped all over that. Exactly. But yeah, went through the whole thing. And, Judge Glass, okay, Mr. Rosen, we get it. Long and short of the story, he gives me 7 months, gives me the lecture. I don't want to see you back here anymore, Meanwhile, over 200 people wrote letters from all walks of life on my behalf. And not wise guys. Judge Glasser was the dean of Brooklyn Law School. Mike Coiro, remember that name, Mike Coiro? Mike Coiro, who was Jeannie and John's lawyer since they were 20 years old, his wife, Stephanie, listen to this. His wife, Stephanie, used to be Judge Glass's secretary when he was dean in Brooklyn Law School. She wrote him a letter. His former secretary, Stephanie Coiro, wrote a letter to Judge Gleeson, how outraged she was. Now, she was his secretary for his entire tenure in court. So you're talking about somebody that knows this man well. And he knew her well. That's just one of many. The governor wrote for me. Cardinal O'Connor, everybody wrote for me. They knew. Listen, they should have asked me questions that I couldn't answer.
Yeah.
So that's how bad they wanted John and anybody close to him. And remember, Gleeson was furious because Frankie Lowe had people that were going to put up bail. No one was putting up bail for Sammy. They were never getting out. But you got to understand, when you're the boss, you want to have your dignity. So when they were putting a bail package together, John just sat there. He didn't say a word. I said to the lawyer, I says, Al, we could come up with at least $5 to $7 million. We'll do security around the house, nobody at the house, all legitimate money, nothing coming from any Gambino family at all 100% legitimate. Gleeson went crazy. He was furious that I was going to had the ability to put together over $7 million for John for bail. Now, again, keep in mind, he was never getting bail with that judge. You had to be, even Mother Teresa wasn't getting bail. You're a mob boss, you're a threat to the community. End of story. So, but at least John, I wanted John to feel good that he had somebody that was, going to put up the money from him. And no one came forward for Gravano. It was only Frankie Lowe and John. So that's another reason why Sammy was so full of hate. Where was all of Sammy's partners he killed. So who was going to put up money from him? His brother-in-law, Eddie? Eddie was glad to get rid of him. So, so that's what happened with Gleeson. Then Gleeson wins the case, through thick or thin, violates all kinds of laws, all kinds of Brady material, all kinds of discovery, doesn't disclose who his family member is, convicts John, now goes on to become a federal judge. Now, to become a federal judge, you've got to be recommended by the United States Senator for that district, who I believe at the time was either Moynihan or D'Amato or whatever, but Glasser had a hook. Glasser was tied in, and that's how he gets the judgeship. He becomes a federal judge. Now, that's a lifetime appointment. They don't make a hell of a lot of money, but it's a prestigious job. It's a lifetime appointment. He goes on the bench. He's there 15 years. 15 years. And he becomes this guy. Oh, he gets an appointment to the Sentencing Guideline Commission, which is, it's no money, but it's prestigious because he was the Gotti judge. Who would ever know John Gleeson if not for John Gotti?
Yeah.
Well, who are you, Mr. Gleeson? Oh, I prosecuted Mr. Gotti. Well, if you didn't prosecute Mr. Gotti, you were just another line assistant in the Eastern District of New York. Period. End of story. You get what I'm saying, Jesse?
I got
He was
you.
a nobody. He made it on John Gotti's back, like everybody else. Becomes a judge. He sits on the bench. Now, what happens? He goes on the Sentencing Guideline Commission, and now he's friends with everybody. Jerry Shargell appears before him. He gives all his. He became a very good sentencer. He was a guy that would have put his mother in jail. Now he was giving out, from what I hear, good sentences. All right. He wants to be everybody's friend now. After he was a dog his entire life as a U.S. attorney. You see, you don't mind a prosecutor does his job. Listen, this is my job. It's not personal. I'm not looking to hurt. This is my job. But it wasn't his job. It was his career. It was his life. He lied.
Yeah.
Misrepresented.
I think he definitely let it become personal.
It became his obsession. He was this holy roller guy. Meanwhile, it wasn't so holy roller. He got divorced. He had a nice little gumata on the side. Everything he said about everybody else, he did. He didn't practice what he preached. So, and I'm sure your listeners know what a gumata is. So what happens is he gets off the bench. He wants to retire now because now he wants to make some real money. And now, listen, all these white shoe law firms in Manhattan, it's very prestigious to have a former federal judge, former prosecutor that got John Gotti in your stable of 100 other lawyers. So now he goes on to this white shoe law firm. I think they start him out at $4 million a year. He writes a book, Jesse, about who? John Gotti. Now he starts doing YouTube shows. Now he starts doing the Mob Museum. And remember, they don't pay. None of these things are for money. He's not getting any money. He's not on RJ where RJ's giving him a commission on the books he sells. He's just doing it because his ego's telling him to do it. Orenstein didn't do any of this. Laura Ward didn't do any of this. She was a real lady, Laura Ward. Tough judge and tough prosecutor, but she kept it business. In other words, she didn't have a hate. She didn't do it. She didn't get a hard on to do it. This is my job. I'm a prosecutor. And she's the one that had me in the grand jury. She treated me like a gentleman. She took her orders from Gleeson. Remember, Gleeson was running the show back then.
Yeah. And
Orenstein was this 7-foot giant that used to follow Gleeson around with his briefcase, like Bruce Cutler used to do with Barry Slotnick. So he gets off the bench. Now he's making $3, $4, $5 million a year. He writes a book. And now he's on all these shows. And the way he sits there and he talks, he's so cocky and so arrogant and so full of himself. But, that's what happened. And, I told you John used to call him, amongst other things, Little Lord Fauntleroy. And he called him, a couple of. But you ever hear how he talks about Sammy? It talks about him and Sammy like they're brothers.
Yeah.
The guy's a sociopath.
Yeah.
Sammy
He speaks very highly of Sammy, very highly.
You're the lead prosecutor. You absolved him of 19 murders. And what about Alan Kaiser, Gleeson? How come you didn't go protect Alan Kaiser and his family? You knew about everything. You're a mutt, Gleeson. You're a mutt, but you got to live with yourself. You got to live with yourself. You took a career as a federal judge. You diminished yourself. You made yourself a real garbage pail, conducting yourself the way you do. But John always said you were a garbage pail. See, you didn't have him fooled for a second. It's unfortunate. We had Al Krieger, who was too busy creeping up Judge Glass's ass. We didn't have Bruce because you knew Bruce would destroy Gravano on that stand. And he indicted Bruce Cutler. Let me tell you what happened here. We never spoke about this. I forgot to mention it.
All right.
Glasser issued an order. You can't talk to the media, to Bruce Cutler and Jerry Shargell. Jerry Shargell was very timid, brilliant, but timid. And he, Jerry taught at Brooklyn Law School. Jerry was busy kissing every behind in town. And John knew that, but John liked his mind, his brain, so he overlooked it. So Bruce, I don't recall his exact words, but Bruce did a TV show, and Glasser got wind of it. And Gleeson filed charges against Bruce Cutler. And they indicted him for violating Judge Glasser's order. Now, if Glasser was a decent human being, he didn't have to go along with that, okay? Bruce was off the case. It was all done. It was all over. He indicts him. So Bruce obviously pleads out. Bruce gets suspended from the federal bar in the Eastern District, I think for 6 or 8 or 9 months. And that destroys his whole career. So Gleeson, live with that. You're not half a man or half a lawyer that Bruce Cutler was, because you didn't have the balls or the courage to let him cross-examine or examine that your brother there, Sammy the Bull, Sammy Gravano. You were scared of Bruce Cutler. You were afraid of Bruce Cutler. But you absolved that lowlife of 19 murders. You knew there was 20 more. Every partner got killed and disappeared. What'd you do about it, Gleeson? Nothing. You were running to FBI headquarters with Gravano. You were parading him around. He testified before Congress. You made your life on John Gotti. You were just another line prosecutor. That's all you. And you know what? You diminished yourself. And every judge and everybody knows what you are. Everybody. So go on Mob Forum, do some more YouTubes, write another book. But you should write in every book, I'm here because of John Gotti. I'm a nobody. I was a mediocre prosecutor. And because I convicted John Gotti, I broke all the rules. And then you weren't happy. You convicted him. Then you tortured him when he was in jail. You used to call the warden and make up stories to the warden. But you don't understand, Gleeson. We knew that. We knew. You didn't fool nobody. John just tied our hands. He tied my hands and he tied Junior's hands. That's all. But we knew. Everybody knew. And you got to live with yourself. Remember, you made your career on John Gotti. Nobody would know who you are. Your wife wouldn't even know you. Your kids wouldn't even know you. You would just be Daddy, the prosecutor. You would have never been a judge. You never would have wrote a book. Who would you be? You wouldn't be there anymore. They would have fired you by now. Well, this is just a quick synopsis of John Gleeson, the prosecutor, the federal judge, the guy who was on the Sentencing Guideline Commission, then the guy that gets off the bench and writes a book. Writes a nice book. I wouldn't read the book. Garbage, more garbage. And now he's making $4 million. Who knows how many million he's making a year now in this white shoe law firm.
Yeah.
Well, but you see, that's the government. That's why I'm so glad Trump fired everybody. Every prosecutor that went after Trump, he fired their asses. Get out. All those
Yeah.
FBI agents, get out. I can't wait till he locks up Letitia James. I want to see her big fat fan he brought out of that building in handcuffs. Don't you
Yeah.
worry. Trump's got 3.5 more years. He's not done with that FBI, and he's not done with that Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Remember, Todd Blanche, he's number 2, but he's really number 1. He's running that Department of Justice, not Pam Bondi. Todd Blanche.
Well, Lewis, I think that answers that question pretty good about John
so.
Gleeson. I think that was pretty good. I think that showed your feelings about that situation. I see that we've got a lot of good comments, but I wanted to ask you, Lewis. The other day, I was watching an older, documentary thing about John Gotti, and it started, from his childhood and went all the way, all the way up. But I wanted to ask you, to go back a little bit. Did John ever discuss with you, anything about his childhood or his early years as a kid? Did he ever say anything to you?
He did. It wasn't something that he did often, but he was one of 13. His father was not an earner. They were very, very, very poor. They were so poor that they used to sleep with potato bags, potato sack bags. Leaky roof in the house, not a lot of food. He grew up, back in those days, very, very, very poor. And that's why at 12 years old, that's when, he resorted to a life of crime. Again, I'm not making any excuses or any apologies, but his dad was extremely, his dad wasn't an earner. And, they grew up extremely poor, in an Italian Jewish area. And back in those days, everybody was poor. And it was a different time, but that's why making money was important to John, but sharing the wealth was equally as important to John because of his upbringing, and because of on how he grew up. Pete, Jeannie, Richie, they just, his brother Billy, the sisters. He wasn't close to his sisters, but it was a terrible, terrible, terrible childhood.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, and the point that I was wanting to make, bringing that up, is that I think it did have a big effect on the way that he ran that family as boss. Like you've mentioned several times, he wasn't a greedy person.
No, he was a very generous man, and that's really why he ran the Gambino family the way he did. And he wasn't greedy, and he let everybody earn and live. Unlike his predecessor, unlike Paul Castellano, John was an all-in kind of guy. If he found out you weren't doing the right thing, or you were robbing, or this or that, then he took appropriate measures. But he was a very, very generous guy. If you needed help, that was the guy you would go to. And like I said, Jesse, many times, a boss is not supposed to be so accessible. And he was always accessible to associates, to maid guys. All right, captains, of course, you're accessible to. But he was accessible to everybody. And he couldn't say no. And, that became, that was a big problem.
Yeah.
That was a big problem. And yeah, by the way, 2 people were convicted in that case with Diane Jackalone. One other thing I want to mention about Diane Jackalone, she used to walk past the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club because she grew up in that neighborhood. It's like, don't you understand? It was one big happy family. She wanted to show her family she was going to get John Gotti.
Yeah.
She used to walk past the Bergen. She waved to the guys, waved to Iggy, waved to Tommy. It was ridiculous. I mean, you're a prosecutor. You don't do that. You don't conduct yourself that way. So, everybody gets, I guess everybody gets it. But, yeah, that was It was very, very difficult times during that prosecution. And remember, we had no lawyers. We had no lawyers for over a month. He took Bruce off. He took Shargell off Glasser. And then Glasser was, once they had Gravano in their pocket, then Glasser was pushing, get lawyers, get lawyers. But remember, like I told you, Jesse, all through that time period, we don't know Sammy's cooperating.
Yeah.
And Sammy's going to all those attorney-client meetings. Meanwhile, his wife is reaching out to Bruce Mao, who was the lead agent, George Gabriel, who was Bruce Mao's flunky. She's reaching out to the FBI, and Sammy's going to the meetings with John and Frankie Lowe. So we'll never know what was the first date that they took him out, or did they leave him in so he could provide more information? Knowing how the FBI operated back then, you know they left him in for a while longer. Just my opinion. And it was John's opinion as well. So listen, it was get Gotti at any cost, destroy as many lives along the way, get Kasman, get his son, get Al Irving, get anybody you could think of. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you just destroy Gotti. You know, that was Jim Fox. He was the head of the FBI at that time in New York, in Washington, D.C., all those hillbillies. It was just, I'm not talking about you, Jess. They just wanted to get John. That's all they wanted to do. So, and yet there are some prosecutors that just did their job. And you would never have a dislike. Hey, listen, this is my job. Like a Laura Ward did her job. Well, it's unfortunate, but that's, back then there were not a lot of checks and balances with the FBI and these prosecutors. Now, 20 years later, you can't do this no more. Trump will not put up with these dirty prosecutors or power-drunk FBI agents or power-drunk assistant U.S. attorneys. Listen, I may not agree with them moving to that lady that was Epstein's girlfriend, that they moved her to a cushy camp, but have you ever heard of the number 2 person in the Department of Justice going to visit an inmate? It's unheard of. And do you know how long it takes to get moved? If you're approved to get moved, it's a 2-step process. They got to make sure no one's going to hurt you where they're moving you to, and they got to make sure that you're not a co-defendant and you're not a cooperator. That takes months. They could play with you for 4 months. She got moved in 48 hours. This is Todd Blanche. I want her moved today. And they moved her today. Because who runs the Bureau of Prisons? Todd Blanche.
Right.
Years ago, you went out, you hired these people. They're called prison consultants. You give them 20 grand. We're going to help you, Lewis. Oh, can you get me to a camp? Yes, we're going to help you. Give us 20 grand. Jess, by the time your sentence is up, that's when you get to the camp. It's all hocus pocus. But when you're Todd Blanche, give me the director of the BOP. Hi, this is Todd Blanche. Move her today. And they moved her. I don't have to agree with it. I don't want to discuss the case. I don't know enough about it. But the point I'm trying to make is the Department of Justice runs the show. And it was get Gotti at any cost.
Yeah.
You could break all the rules, do anything you want. Just convict this guy, and we'll kill him. We'll do the rest once we get him in our custody. And think about it. Their plan worked. John's plan didn't work. It backfired, Jesse. The government's plan worked. Convicted him at all costs and then killed him. He was murdered in jail. Had they treated that cancer, again, I'm not a doctor, but had they give him treatment, proper treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, whatever they had to give him in the proper confinements, who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have gone haywire through his body. Maybe it would have been in remission. We'll never know. But I'll tell you one thing, he pulled off a good 11 years, handcuffed to a bed, throwing up, regurgitating on his own vomit.
Yeah.
I remember, Jesse, when he would call me on the phone, Jess, he'd be pushing the morphine button. I'd say, Grandpa, what's that noise? Hey, Lewis, that's the morphine button. You imagine I'm talking to him, he's pushing the morphine button? Yeah. And you know something? Half the times the morphine drip, Jess, was empty. Because
Yeah.
as sick as he was, when you have an IV drip, Jesse, you could see it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can see it.
I say, Grandpa, is it coming down? He says, Lewis, there's no morphine in here. He says, if I was on morphine, he said, would I be able to talk to you right now? There's no morphine here. I'm just pushing the button.
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
crazy.
I wonder what they've got. How about Saddam Hussein? Did they put him on a morphine drip when it was killing our troops? Huh? What'd they do? What'd they do for him? What'd they do for Pollard? What'd they do for these worst of the worst? See, you got to remember the narrative about John. Yeah, he was flamboyant, and he was who he was. I'm not here to make him to be, some, church choir boy here. But they created their narrative. They loved John. They needed this. The FBI. Where would you get 200 FBI agents on one squad to go after one guy? This was their thing. Think about all those agents who made careers on John Gotti. There's not only one or two. There could be 20 of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are more low-key. They're all working. Who's working for General Electric? Who's working for Blackstone? Who's working in NY? Look at John Miller. Would anybody know John Miller if not for John Gotti? For NYPD, intelligence commissioner, former, out in LA with Bill Bratton, his number 2. If you look at all the players back then, all on John Gotti's blood, every single one of them.
You're right.
And you look at a guy like Alan Kaiser. How does Gleeson? He has children. He has daughters. He has no sons. He has daughters. How does he live with himself? And Kaiser's just one. We don't know how many others they are, but Gleeson knows, and Mao knows, and Gabriel knows. The guys with the badges and the guns. FBI. It says it. FBI. They know.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Just tell us, make up stories. Tell us everything you got to tell us about John. Just let's put him away.
Yeah.
They took him to Arizona. You know what they did with him? He wanted to go drive a Ferrari. So the FBI agents, this is before they put him into WITSEC.
Who is this, Gravano?
Yeah, Gravano. So they take him to the Ferrari dealership. And whatever they do, they find the owner. They give the owner a couple of $1,000 and they say, listen, we're going to have an agent with him in the car. He just wants to drive a Ferrari. He drives a Ferrari all over for about an hour. FBI. Mr. Gravano wanted to drive a Ferrari. Was he worried about his wife or his son or all these people? He'd have to worry about anybody killing him because Uncle Pete didn't have the brains or the balls to kill him. He sent 3 guys out there to kill him. They tripped over each other. So there was no threat on Sammy. And even if there was, who was going to carry it out? There was nobody competent to carry it out.
Yeah.
Or nobody who wanted to carry it out. So, yeah. So,
well, just out of curiosity, once John is convicted and he's off the street, how does that affect you?
Okay.
He was your guy, he was your man, and then he's taken off the street. What does that do to you?
Well, let me tell you about that. So from the conviction, then they sentence him, and he refused to meet with probation because what was the purpose for him to meet with probation? What are they going to do? Do a pre-sentence report on him? He refuses, I happen to agree with him. No purpose. So they ship him out in the middle of the night, private plane. They didn't do the bus. They didn't do the whole diesel therapy routine. They ship him nice, private jet. And the pilots and the co-pilot, they knew who they were taking, and their wives made cookies and made things. Oh, give this to Mr. Gotti. And the FBI was furious at that. Furious. So they ship him out, and they take him right to Marion. Marion has an airport. They take him right to Marion. Now, normally, there's a process. It should have taken him 2 months before he got to Marion. But he was so high profile, they couldn't put him in Lewisburg. They couldn't put him in Pollock. There was nowhere to put him. And Marion was the only level 6. There was no Arizona ADX. So they bring him there. He has no glasses, and his eyes were bad, so he can't read. Finally, we get him glasses after they jerk us around for a while. And so everything was fine. Nobody, I have to really say, the only people that were out of order were his brother Richie, not the nephew Richie, the brother Richie, a scumbag. Pete at times was a scumbag. And that was really it. All John's guys, no, not a problem. Utmost respect treated me. JoJo, utmost respect. Everybody, Arnold Squarteri, Tony McGalley. I never had a problem with nobody in that Gambino family except his own family. Because they won't show me the money. Where's the money? I wish I knew where the money was. I used to tell Junior, show me the money. But they were obsessed. They were crazy. But Pete was okay, because remember, they knew he was calling me. So they knew I had access. And the street figured I was visiting because I was going to Marion. Most of the time when Junior went, I went. Just for company. And John liked it that I would go with his son. We'd have dinner together. We'd hang out, whatever. Me, Johnny Boy Ruggiero, maybe once in a while, Stephen Kaplan, a few, all, normal people, legitimate people, not wise guys. And John, back then, John was, it was fun to be around. We had a pretty good time. Food, this and that. He was good. So, so there was no problems. Everything was fine. But when the problems started, as John started to get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker, and then Pete, his son Pete, and I were very, very close. So they all played it the right way till he really got very sick. And like I said, it wasn't street guys. It wasn't other families. It was only his brother Richie, who me and him battled. And then once in a while, Pete. But I would say 90% of the time, Pete was okay. And all the other acting bosses or whoever was in charge treated me wonderful. Wonderful. Couldn't have asked for better. And then, of course, we had the problem with those Lucchese's because that's when Pete Pete and Richie try to get money out of me. They try to extort me. And I wouldn't be extorted by them. So then when the Lucchese's, Pete was being abused by the Lucchese family in the city. And that's when Sal Scala grabbed me in Huntington and Walt Whitman Mall and says, Lewis, don't expect any help from Pete. He's useless. He doesn't help me. He says, I go to a sit down every week with that Lucchese family. Don't trust them and don't turn your back on them. That Sideburns, that Caridi, all of them. That mutt that has a thing on YouTube, Panisi, whatever his name is, all bad. Like certain wise guys you can go into business with. Like if you're in business with John, no problems. No problems. Whatever the deal is, that's the deal. Gravano, you wound up dead. Lucchese's, you wound up dead. John wasn't that way. He was a pleasure to be in business with. I mean, you knew the penalties. You knew, everybody knew. I mean, when we closed up in the city, the government seized all our businesses. Albee Trimming seized, Scorpio Marketing seized. John was a Scorpio, by the way. That was his sign. Mm-hmm. And they seized everything. And but that's what it was. The only people that really were out of order was Pete, because John played that Machiavellian shit, and they were very jealous. And the proof is at the funeral when Pete did the right thing and said, Lewis, I'm providing the money. I gave it to Richie the other day, so get it from Richie, because Pete was incarcerated at this time. And when I went to see Pete in the MDC, he says, Richie has $50,000. Get it from Richie. So whatever you need for my brother, use that money. Richie wouldn't give him. He stole the money. His own brother stole the money. So, because it goes to show you.
It's crazy, man. Lewis, we got about 200 people in here. Everyone that's watching, be sure to hit that like button.
And Jesse, what the most amazing thing is?
What's that?
He was good to everybody. If you came to him with a story, my mother's sick, this, that, what do you need, Jess? I don't have a bed for my kid. I don't have this. I don't have that. What do you need, Jess? Or one day we were out to dinner. I think I might have told you the story. And my firstborn, we were living in Lido Beach at the time. And my firstborn daughter, Ryan, who he's her godfather, she was running a fever. and I needed some medicine. And back then there wasn't CVS, there wasn't Walgreens. So you went to a neighborhood pharmacy. So in Brooklyn, there was a pharmacy. A lot of people will know this. It's called King's Pharmacy, Kings Pharmacy. So John, he sends Junior. He says, Junior, go get whoever he told him to get. They come back. He says, go to this pharmacy. It's a 24-hour pharmacy. Lewis needs this medicine, and bring it to his wife in Lido Beach. So they go, and whatever it was, it doesn't matter what it was, but they buy everything in the store, and they go to it with shopping bags. All we needed was one, but that's how he was. And they knock on the door. So my wife called me. She says, there's somebody. I says, open the door. It's the medicine for Ryan. That's the kind of guy he was. He didn't have to do. He could have just, whatever. All right, we'll get it. We'll go later. Me and you will go. No, that's how he was. He was like that with his own grandchildren. When Vicky was sick, he used to call me, make sure she gets the doctors, make sure this, take her to St. Francis Hospital. He was always about family and that everybody should be well and that no one should want for anything. That's how he was. That's just how he was. And all he wanted back was, just do the right thing. Like on one of the recordings, you hear him saying, hey, listen, I asked you to send me a Christmas picture for the holidays. Yeah. They play that ad nauseum. Okay, but you got to understand, in defense of Vicky, the government played with his mail. So you got to understand, the government looks at your mail. And when you're John Gotti, they look at it, they open it, they read it, they smell it, they sniff it. They make copies of it. They show it to their wives, their kids, your kids, my kids. If you don't have kids, they'll show it when they have kids. That's what they do. So they probably heard him on the phone. I want pictures of my grandchildren. So what they do is to torture him. They take that out. Now, I know for a fact Vicky sent him that. Because how do I know? I took some pictures. I says, give me those pictures. You send them and I send them. How come he never got any of the pictures? And I told that to John, because for a while he stopped calling them and he would only call me. And of course he would create havoc like that because he was lashing out. And I used to tell them he's locked up 24 hours a day. He locked in. And in the summer, the air conditioning didn't work in Marion. So it's 80, 90, 95 degrees in a cell. And when you go for a shower at Marion, there's no shower in your room. They put you in a plexiglass enclosure with holes all around it. They wheel you in the enclosure, Jesse, to where there's a shower head and a garden hose. And you know what they do, Jess? They hose you down and the water comes through all the holes. Okay? Then when they're done, they wheel you back in the same plastic cell and put you back in your room. With one hand towel, not a bath towel, a hand towel. You ever try and dry yourself off with a hand towel? But it was so hot in the cell, Jess, you didn't have to dry it. Picture 8 and no air, no ventilation. And in the afternoon where they had his cell, cloudy square window, the sun used to come through. So if it was 90 out, it was 100 in.
Yeah. Yeah, those are brutal conditions, man.
I mean, I know people don't understand this. I know people don't get this. I was in jail. I was in like a helmet. I was in the Marriott. Junior was in jail. He was in the Marriott. He was in jail. The worst form of confinement you could ever have. At least Arizona, there's ventilation because that's a modern facility. Imagine they're wheeling you in a plastic canister to take a shower. So to get back to the other thing, she sent the pictures and she'd go on the visit. And remember, she has that heart illness and all kinds of issues. And then he would call me up. I don't want them coming anymore. And then I would have to waive off the visits for a month or two. I would say, but Grandpa, she sent you the pictures. I know she sent you pictures. But, he'd make his mind up and he would just focus on that one thing. How come I got your pictures? How come I got JoJo's pictures? How come I got Sally's pictures? I said, because they know you wanted the grandchildren. They know you wanted Vicky's kids. How come you got Angel's kids? You got Angel's daughter and you got Angel's son. How come? But you couldn't convince him. You couldn't convince him. So, those, and keep in mind, when he was in Marion, it was one phone call a month, Jesse. One phone call a month. They would wheel the phone to him. They didn't take him out of the cell and say, okay, use the phone on the wall. They dial the number. And if that phone number's not on your sheet, that call's not going through. And they dial it, and then they hand him the receiver. So the one thing they did do, they allowed him to call my number. So when he was mad at the family, he'd call me. He'd put me in the middle of it. Then they'd be mad at me. Or then what would happen was I had to be at the house, his house on 85th Street, when he was calling there. That was a rule. And because he would ask, who's here? Who's there? When Junior was out, Junior's here, Uncle Pete's here, Lewis is here, Vicky's here, Angel's here. Everybody had to be in attendance. Not because not because we had to. We wanted to. But that was his way of, he had no control anymore. Don't you understand?
Yeah.
So that's how we did it. And then he would talk to Angel. And if he was mad at Angel, he'd talk to me. And if he was mad at me. And he would go around, and he'd fight with everybody. And that's how, but we knew and we understood, because you know what? I couldn't do 5 minutes of the kind of jail time he did. And everybody knew that. And we loved him to death either way, And, but I have to say, he couldn't have a more devoted Vicky, Angel, his wife. Everybody was totally devoted to him. There isn't anything that any of us wouldn't have done for him, running and going, sending him glasses, mail, whatever it was. If he asked for it, an hour later, it was done. And that's the way it should be. Because when we asked him for anything, it wasn't an hour. It was 5 minutes later it was done. That's just the kind of man he was. If he loved you. If he hated you, you would disappear just as quick. Mm-hmm. But, that's the kind of man he was. And all these people here that come on, they don't know him. JJ, Tin Pail, they don't even know. They don't have a clue about this man. They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue about him, how he lived, what his childhood years were, how. Nothing. They don't know. They know what they read. Or they know what other people say, but nobody knows. They know what they hear. They know what they repeat. They know about articles they read. But unless you were physically there for holidays, for dinners, for birthdays, you don't know this man. If you were not in his presence, you don't know him. You might know of him, or you might know what you read. 80% of what you read is crap, okay, exaggerated or bullshit. Listen, you'll never meet, this was a tough guy's tough guy. But if he loved you, and you heard what Junior said on that program, if he loved you no matter what. And if you mess with anybody he loved, you were done. You were gone. No explanation. No, I'm sorry. No, I'll never do it again. You were gone. That's just how he was. And he was all about respect, Jesse. All about respect. And he gave it. He gave it. Listen, how he was with his men, you get my point? The captains, that's another thing. Yeah. That's that life. But how he was with his people, his family, the people he loved, his son Peter, who he loved him. He used to come home and I'd look for Peter just to give Peter a kiss on the top of his head. That's the kind of man he was. And that's what he would do. And he would tell me, what time did you get in last night? Listen, whatever. And then he would say, and Peter was on the couch. So I said, on the top of the head? Yep. That's what made him happy. And Peter would wait for him on the couch. That's the kind of son Peter was. John was out of the house by then. Vicky was out of the house by then. And Angel lived across the street, and Angel come over every day with her granddaughter. He loved that granddaughter. Loved her. So it's sad. It's just everything is sad. Everything is fucked up. Everything is just, it's not the way he would want it. Mm. Not the way he would want it. And, but in a way, he couldn't live anymore the way he was living with that kind of cancer, Jesse. No treatment. I told you the story when I told everybody the story when I got him that treatment, through that lawyer in Springfield. It was too late, but at least, and Vicky flew out there, and at least, Vicky said, at least you got him 6 days of humanity.
Right.
But, he wouldn't let us. There were a lot of other things we could have done. He wouldn't let us. He forbid us. He would disown us. We knew just how far we could go. And then, then it was a problem. And why do you want to do that to him, man? He's dying anyway. So you can only go so far. So anything intelligent come up?
Well, I was just going to turn to some questions, but that's fascinating stuff, Lewis. I mean, that's, like I've said before, that's just a look at John Gotti through somebody that was there and was next to him. It's interesting stuff. We've been going.
You know what? Just nobody knows this stuff. No one has a clue. No one knows anything about this man's heart and his integrity. He was a thug. He was a mob boss. But put that on the side. They don't know the type of person he was. Oh yeah, he took care of business. Don't misunderstand a word I'm saying. But I wasn't in that life.
Yeah.
And like John used to say to me, you have the best of both worlds. What do you want to be in this life for? You have nothing to do with this life. You have the best. You have the best of everything. You do what you want. You got the biggest business in the garment center you could have. Nobody fucks with you. Who's got it better than you?
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody asked, what was my experience in jail? Listen, I went to a camp. Okay, it's like a college dorm. If you folks have ever, your kids go to a college campus, it's a college dorm. There's in Lewisburg, this particular camp, there was two bunk bed. Am I saying it right? Yeah, bottom and a lower, upper and a lower bed. And you got up at 6 a.m. If you had a job, you went to work. If you were unit orderly, you didn't go to work. And that's what your day was. You could work out in the gym. You get a haircut. I used to get a haircut once a week. They had a good barber shop. I never ate in the cafeteria except on Sundays because they used to do barbecues at Lewisburg. That happened to be a very good camp. So they used to do barbecues, hamburgers, and hot dogs. And so it was easy there. The only problem we had there was that Randy Pizzola, who had a terrible thing with me, jealousy with me. I never knew the kid till I got there, and he had a thing with John. And you all know what happened to Pizzola. He was murdered. Who was he murdered by, Jess? Gas pipe? Or was it the other guy? I don't know.
I think gas pipe, but I know there was some confusion over him.
Yes, he was murdered for doing the wrong thing with a boss, and I knew he was going to get murdered because he was a wacko. He was a screwball. Other than that, and there was no problems there. I had Herbie Sperling was behind the wall, so he was always looking out, sending messages. One of the guys, Tony McGalley's guy was there. This bookmaker, Tony Riccatelli, nice old man. It was fine. Sundays was linguine and clam sauce and lobster. There was a guy there from Arthur Avenue who used to cook on Sundays. And I used to get the linguine and I used to get the clam sauce. So we had that on the weekends. And then the weekends, they had chickens there. So it was all fresh eggs. So you had all the kind of eggs you wanted any day of the week. Fresh produce. So, you made the best of it. The visits were very easy. It was just, you're away from your family. And back then you didn't have all the different time constraints on the wall phones. Now it's a lot more regimented than when I was there. So, and everybody knew everybody there. They knew when I got there, they had all my stuff there waiting for me. My bed was made. Everything was done. So, I had no problem there. The only problem there was only temporary was that lowlife Pizzola. Because his uncle was telling stories to Jackie Knows, who was getting $500 off this guy. So that's another loyal guy, Jackie Knows.
Junior G says he read Gleason's book. It sucked. It was all about him making money on Gotti's name.
Thank you, Junior G. 100% right. 100% right.
What was that? What was that nickname?
Little Lord Fauntleroy. Hey, I hear Jeff Nadeau's coming back, Jess.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. I haven't seen it, but I saw he had a video out. I haven't been able to see it though. Johnny Boy says the case was handed to Gleeson on a silver platter by the FBI in Gambino.
Well, you're right to some extent, Johnny Boy, but let me tell you a little bit about that. Gleeson worked very, very close with the FBI, as most AUSAs do, but he worked even closer. You know what I'm saying? So, not to take anything away from Gleeson, he's a smart guy. He's no dummy. He's just devious. Okay, there's a difference. He has a deviant, sick streak in him. But nothing was handed to Gleeson. Believe me, Gleeson and the FBI made that case.
This comment says Gotti had innocent people killed also, like his neighbor.
Well, that guy was innocent, but that guy did run over John's son, and emotions were high, and that guy should have got out of town. He was told 3-4 times to get out of town, to let things, whatever. Here's one. They want to know 728 if I'm in touch with the kids. No, I'm not in touch with them. No. And thank you for your compliment, though.
Amanda says, American made, you're a class act kid. I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate that. A lot of jealous people here with Jesse and me. A lot of jealous people. You know who you are, you jealous people, with cobwebs in the corner and fireplaces that don't work and no electric in your house. Why don't you go back in your crawl space with your cobwebs?
Harry says, any Gotti stories from your wedding?
No, at all. From my wedding? Yeah, it was his wedding, not my wedding. Oh my God, that was some wedding. Puppet Master says Gleeson thought Sammy was a smart guy. No, Puppet Master. Gleeson was the ultimate manipulator. And Gravano was the ultimate manipulator, and he gave Gleeson what he wanted. There's a difference. He knew how to get Gleeson, and that's what he did. Because Sammy, not smart, a con artist, and he conned the shit out of Gleeson. And everybody today knows it.
Yeah. Lewis, hold it down real quick. I need to grab my phone charger. Hold on just 1 second.
Go ahead. You and that phone charger. Oh, Tin Pail. Go away, Tin Pail. Go with JJ. Go make a show. He has 4 people watch his show. Go play with JJ. Be happy. Because you don't speak English, Tin Pail. Nobody can understand you. Yep. It's so true when you say this, John. Lewis is, those were the days back then, No, Sammy didn't agree to 20 years, Johnny Boy. Sammy in his first case was getting 5 years. Then he became a drug pusher. The deal was made with the judge. You understand? The deal was made because John always said, Sammy can't do jail. Everybody knew it. If that arrest doesn't come down, there's no Gravano. Gravano's gone. Bye-bye. So.
All right, Lewis, sorry about that.
Back?
I'm back.
Yeah, Beavis says when Gleeson wakes up in the morning, he turns over and says, "Morning, John." You're right, Beavis. Yeah. Gleeson should have been sending him commissary with all the money he made off John's blood.
Yeah. Lewis, we've been going about an hour and 11 minutes. We've got 223 people watching. Let's get to a couple more questions.
Yeah. Someone here called Gleeson wasn't a junkie. No, I call Gleeson a lot of things, but to my knowledge, he wasn't a junkie. So a POS he was, but not a junkie. So again, I try and just keep it right.
Yeah. His second part here, but his relation to John should have excused himself from the trial.
100%.
And we mentioned, on a previous video that, he knew all this at the time, but he chose to keep it quiet. He said that in an interview with the Mob Museum, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, here's one. 734, Masato. It's a good one. You got it?
Lewis, when John used to leave the house around midday, who was it that usually picked him up? Bobby alone, or was there several guys in, what is that?
Several guys, i.e. Miserable, who was Jojo Carrazzo's nickname.
Miserable, Cripple, or Bobby
Cripple
Bordello,
was Jackie.
if you can elaborate.
Yeah, Miserable was Jojo's nickname, and because he was always miserable. And Cripple was Jackie D'Amico, because John used to say he's crippled, or Bobby Borello. I would say 80% of the times, John would leave the house by himself because Junior used to go get his car. His car was parked in Angel's garage. So Junior would get the car and bring the car around. And then John would call Bob Pellegrino, Fat Bob, and Bob would be waiting for him outside the club with his clothes, his appointments, and everything else. And, if I wasn't there or his son wasn't there, Fat Bob took care of him real good. And that's how that started. And a lot of times Jojo Jackie was at the club every day. Jojo would drive. Jackie wouldn't drive that often. Mostly Jojo or Bobby, or it would depend on where he's going and what he was doing and what appointments, if he was going to go into the city that day, go into the garment center, meet, whatever. And that's really how he got very, very close to Tommy Gambino, because we were all in business together up there. So whenever John was up there, he'd make me go get Tommy. And, like I said many times, him and John had a really good rapport, good relationship. And Tommy was very good for John in a lot of ways. And John for him. They had a good back and forth. So
this comment says Gleeson was just one hitter. The government had many waiting to get John.
You might be right. But it would have, if John wins this case, the government's not coming back for a long time. Because don't forget, there's no Gravano. And there's no apartment upstairs. See, so many things are different. I mean, it sounds like a little crazy to talk, but we still don't know how that bug got upstairs in the Sorelli apartment. Was it Gravano? Was it Joe Watts? Was it this guy? We don't know. Those 302s were never released. See, the government can hide what they want. They just don't do a 302, or they rip it up. They could have ripped up Junior's 302s. How did those 302s get released? They basically put Junior's life in danger by releasing those 302s.
Yeah.
Okay? It was just because there was so much love for John on the street, although those Lucchese's wanted to kill John. That Lucchese family, the boss and underboss at that time, wanted to kill John Jr.
Yeah, I think he's even said in an older interview that he felt, they were trying to get him killed.
Yeah. And now that we do the look back, I believe Mikey Scars was playing both ends against the middle anyway. So, because you got to remember, Scars had a lot of sins. He had a lot of deeds to cover here. Where's the money? Where's the money from construction? Where's the money from the strip club in Atlanta? Where you're talking big money, Jesse? Where'd that money go? Who got it all? Senior didn't get it all. Junior didn't get it all. So,
Joy Faraci says Gravano is a child killer. August 5th is 48 years. My baby brother is dead.
You're right, Joy. You're 100% right. Here's one, Butler Properties. It's not that, if you pull that up, why does Sammy have hatred for Cutler? Anybody, you want to read that, Jess?
Butler Property says, hey, Lewis, do you know any particular reason Sammy has so much hatred for Bruce Cutler?
Because I'm going to tell you why. A lot of reasons. Number one, Sammy hated anybody that was close to John. Jackie D'Amico, Jojo Carrazzo, me, anybody who had John's ear, Gravano hated. And obviously, again, I don't want to read that tea leaf. Maybe Sammy figured if Sammy flips, Cutler's going to examine me. Cutler's going to cross-examine me. Why would he want to hate Cutler? Cutler did what he was told to do. Cutler's allowance was $5,000 a month, sometimes 10. That was it. He wasn't paid like these other lawyers were paid. Al Krieger, $700,000. This guy, $800,000. Bruce was getting $5,000, $10,000 a month tops. Okay, I should know, tops. So Sammy was scared to death of Bruce, and now maybe we know why. Maybe Sammy had these thoughts in his head.
Yeah,
I don't know that, but why would you hate Bruce? He was loyal to your boss. You should love Bruce. Listen, Bruce was a good man. A good man. He got a good screwing. Good screwing.
Johnny Boy says to Joy Faraci, you're keeping your brother's name alive and shaming Sammy for his crime.
Absolutely. Someone's asking how my childhood was. I didn't have a great childhood. Jojo was a dangerous man, if you gave him a reason to be. But Jojo was taught by John. Jojo was a real tough guy, just like John. He was Cosa Nostra. Never met Sal Polisi.
Brad says, hey, Lewis, Jack alone, it was proved by a lawyer that the Bergen wasn't there when she was growing up, so she could not have walked past it.
No, that's not true. Good trying, though. I'm glad you tried.
Nagon 11 says, so true, Lewis. It was all about a scorched earth policy when it came to Gotti.
Absolutely. When it came to Gotti, and what about Trump?
Yeah.
Do anyone realize, do people realize they wanted to take his business away from him? I mean, scorched earth? Unbelievable.
Joy Faraci also says, and the government covered up my brother's murder.
That's correct. They did. They sure did.
Well, like you said, Lewis, it was definitely never brought up. Gleeson never brought it up when
No.
Sammy was his boy. Because he was used as a way to get Gotti.
Yep, exactly right.
Harry says, I have no skin in the game, but JJ, you average 200 views per video. Maybe bring Lewis on your channel for a boost.
I wouldn't go on JJ's channel for anything.
Alessandro says, did the Sinatra Club actually exist? They asked a question a few minutes ago. Did you know Sal Polizzi, who claims he had a place called the Sinatra Club?
I never knew Sal Polizzi. Knew of him, but never personally knew him.
Puppet Master says John was absolutely murdered in jail.
Mm-hmm. And this Petey says, Lewis, did you forget you were a wire? I don't forget anything. I don't forget anything. That's a whole show that we're going to devote to that.
Yeah.
So
Cosmo says, love the channel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brooklyn says you called him Grandpa. Exactly right. That was his nickname. And then I got all the kids calling him that. Vicky, everybody. We all called him Grandpa.
Junior G says, do you think the government gave him cancer? Wise guys think they do.
I don't think they gave him cancer. I think the water he was drinking in Marion was definitely tainted.
Yeah, I think it definitely led to it. You've spoke about this. Junior spoke about this.
It definitely led to it. The water was tainted. We did that show on Larry King with Attorney General Thornburg, and it was confirmed that the water in Marion is tainted. So I'm definitely sure that it definitely added definitely promoted that.
G Shippy says, yeah, but like it was said, he walked like a man's man all the way to the gate. He laughed last.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Here's Junior G. Did I see him in jail? I saw him when he was in the MCC. And then once he was convicted and sentenced, the Bureau of Prisons would not let me see him because they said I was a threat to institutional security and I had the ability to break him out of jail. Did you ever hear of anything like that in your life?
Yes.
I'm going to break him out of jail. I'm looking to break into jail to go visit him. So every time he would send me the papers to fill out, it would take a month to get back. I would send them back priority overnight. Get back. He'd call me up. He says, oh, the counselor has the papers. Okay. Then the counselor would say, no, we can't let him in because we have information that he's going to look to break you out of jail. Imagine, I'm a threat. On my form, it says I'm a threat to institutional security.
Well, how about, you mentioned this before that they threw you in the closet.
Well, that was hence years down the road when he was in Springfield, and I got that lawyer, D. Wampler, to get him into Springfield Hospital. And then I went up to the intensive care unit with his brother Pete, and to me, they looked like ninjas. You couldn't see their face, whatever. And they threw us on the floor. But it was terrible because I was right there. But so were they.
Yeah.
Just till this day, I don't know where they came from. And then imagine being locked up with Uncle Pete in the closet.
Mrs. Faraci says, Gotti Sr. suffered so bad because of Gravano. Rest in peace, John Gotti Sr.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Joy. Yeah. Just this mutt, and he's a mutt, this JJ's on here. I don't even want, not to give him any airtime, telling people to go to another show. Not that they're going to go because nobody has the show that you put on. But this is the kind of mutt he is. A freak mutt. No friends, no family, no nothing. That's what he is. You're a real garbage pail. Real garbage pail. Go find Tin Pail. Go play with Tin Pail.
Well, Lewis, like I've said before, man, if people are interested in anything about John Gotti, they're not going to hear, they're not going to find, somebody else with the firsthand accounts like you have,
No, nobody's going to find except me and his kids. Nobody. All these other people are all fakesters, including Scars. That's the biggest fakester. Did you see? I don't know if I told you, Jess. Do you know he had Jack Garcia, a former undercover FBI agent, on his program 3 times?
I didn't know about the 3 times. I just saw the first one, I think.
Yeah. Let's drink to the chief, but let me have the former FBI agent on 3 times. Yeah. So I guess all of you know what a fake he turned out to be.
Harry with 199. I appreciate that, man. He says, any John stories from your wedding?
Yeah, we have a lot of those, but we'll save that's another show in itself. We got some pictures and everything.
Thanks for the 199, man. Let's get to a couple more, Lewis. We've been going almost an hour and 30 minutes. We've got 222 people here. Let's get to a couple more good ones and we'll wrap it up. Brooklyn says, why are people fighting in the chat about doxing each other? Not my business, just noticing.
Yeah, you're right.
People are vicious, man. People are.
But it's always, it's always the same. It's always those same low lifes. Those same dirty low lifes. Filthy, dirty. Cockroaches in their house.
Yeah.
Cobwebs on the ceiling.
A777 says, you said John expressed for you not to trust any Lucchese members. Do you think John knew it was Casso behind the hits on Borriello, DeCicco, and Lino?
I think maybe afterwards he knew. Yeah.
Emmanuel says, tells the truth. The one thing Lewis Kasman is not is a Fugazi. He has stories that has to be listened to.
Here's one. When I lived in Lido, did I take the train to New York? No, I never took the train to New York from Lido. I always left from Merrick or Belmore.
Lewis, did you have any contact with Tommy Huck Carbonaro back in the late 80s?
I did. I sure did. Hey, Jess, you got to tell some of the people on here that they should not give their information to this JJ or this Tin Pail. They're looking for people's identification. Just maybe.
Yeah, we don't. Anyone that's doxing anybody or putting out information, man, we're going to have to get rid of that. I don't see any of that on my end. I haven't. Maybe I've missed it, but Big Jim says best show on YouTube. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Lewis, you see one more before we wrap it up?
I'm looking. Yeah, Petey, this is a good one. Petey says if Senior was alive, he would have whacked you for the wire. If Senior was alive and nothing this happened, there would have been no wires. There would have been no Junior 302s. There would have been nothing. Come on, Petey, you got a brain. Use it. You got to let the hate go. You got to look at every situation for what it is and for what it was. Obviously, if John Sr. was alive, I wouldn't be on YouTube right now. I wouldn't be talking to Jesse. Yeah. Mikey Scars wouldn't be sitting there with AJ trying to audit AJ's account to see how much money he made this month on the book for commission. You know, it would have been a different day. We know that. That's common sense. If you had any brains.
Brian G says, American Made, get rid of this guy. I don't know if they're referring to someone in the chat or whatever, but
well, maybe me.
I don't think so. I think the people behind the scenes are taking care of that before I could even see it.
Oh, okay. This one here about Sakali by Brad Nickelodeus. Sakali is the maggot. Yeah, you're 100% right. He's a very bad guy. Yeah, he had to do what he did because he would have wound up dead. He was just a very, very bad guy.
Butler Properties says, hey, Lewis, did people treat you different after them finding out you were very close with John Gotti?
Of course. 100%.
Lewis, we've been going about an hour and 32 minutes. Everyone be sure to hit that like button. Donate to the channel if you can. See if we see any good ones before we close it up, Lewis.
Yeah. Here's somebody, Marquis, Lewis Cashman. I'm liking your videos. Thank you.
Leonard Larocco says, awesome show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richie says, great show. Love from Ireland.
Petey wants to know when I got my button. I didn't need a button. I had better than a button.
Keith C. says, Sakali makes it seem like he was the Carlo Gambino of his time.
Nah, he's a garbage pail. Hated by everybody. A real fraud. Here, George L. Am I half Italian? My grandfather was Italian. So, yeah, I got that Italian thing.
Puppet Master with $9.99. Lewis, did John invest in any businesses in California?
I don't know if he invested, but Angel's husband had a pizzeria out there. So I don't know if John helped him or not in that, but it's possible. John Jr. had a Neapolitan Mastiff dog. They used to keep it in the backyard.
Thanks for that donation, Puppet Master.
Yeah, Vegas Pete, he saw Sammy today on TV, Vlad, and Sammy says he's still a made guy. I think Sammy has dementia. If you listen to him talk, I think Sammy's on his way to, well, no, they wouldn't even put him in Mafia heaven. He's probably going to go to Mafia hell.
Mm.
Yeah, Sammy's on his way out. Here's one from Puppet Master. Did Sammy and John ever go out to dinner together? Not often, but yes.
Hmm.
No, Fat Bob was not his driver, John Sildicki. Fat Bob was his, I want to say his valet. We'll call Fat Bob his valet.
Petey says, how many other inmates in Marion got cancer?
Great
That's a good
question.
question. Yeah, that's
Quite
a
a
good
few.
question.
But they, when we asked that question, they wouldn't disclose it.
Trent says, Lewis, did you ever go to any events at the Westchester Theater with Senior or any of the other fellas?
No,
If
I
so,
didn't.
who did you see?
I never went to anything there.
B. Bacala says, what's good, fellas? God bless John Gotti. Trent says, Gravano called Pete Gotti Igor behind his back. Did any others think of him as that
Yeah,
as
they
well
did.
as, or
That's
just
because
Gravano?
he had that eye problem. Yeah, my restaurant was in Boca, Eli Palm. Yeah, he's a real sicko.
Junior G says, thank you for answering my questions. Love the channel. Thank you, man, for being here.
Oh, here, this mutt, JJ says, he wants to post emails showing when, yeah, you could post anything you want. Yeah, when we spoke months back, yeah, I didn't know what a misfit you were. I didn't know you only have 6 subscribers. I learned. So I don't really care what you do. Go in your teepee. Go put smoke in your teepee in your backyard there with the cockroaches. You cockroach.
Cockroach.
That's what he is, a cockroach. Like, where do these people come from? He tells people he's sick, my mother's sick, pray for me. Gives a fuck. Yeah, the nightclub was owned by Stephen Kaplan in Boca, Club Boca. It was 20 years ago.
See any more good ones, Lewis?
Yeah, somebody here mentioned something about Chris Tarantino. Yeah, he was a guy on Long Island that had these synergy gyms, and he had a very successful burglary crew, but he got a raw deal, and he's sick right now. But I like Chris.
Petey said he laughed out loud over the cockroach.
Well, that's what he is, a cockroach. A real lowlife.
Sean asked, Lewis, where was John's favorite pizzeria?
I don't know. I have no idea. Here's one. Sakali robbed his own grandmother. Yeah, he did. He certainly did. Here, Keith says, Lewis, what did you want Junior Gotti to do for your family while you were in the can? Just stop over, say hello. Do you need anything? How are the kids? How's everything? Anything I could do for you? Is there a leak in the roof? That's all. That's what normal people do. Here, Richie Morgan, what do I think of Gotti in the Travolta movie? I thought it was terrible. I thought Travolta was terrible, and I thought that whole movie was terrible. Disgusting. Armin Asante was the best version. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Definitely.
Here, Brooke wants to know what JJ didn't do nothing to me. If he's just a garbage pail. That's all he is. He didn't do nothing to me. A low life.
Johnny Boy says the best Gotti production was Gotti, Godfather and Son. I think that was like an A&E special or something.
Hey, Mr. I did not own Club Boca. That was owned by Stevie Kaplan. Lee Cole, you got to go. Angel's looking for you. You got to go. You got to pick her up. Time for you to go, Lee. Go kiss my sister's ass. Go kiss her fat ass, Lee Cole. Proctor got rid of you. She's going to get rid of you too. You ready, Jess?
I think so, man. We've been going about an hour and 42 minutes. You got anything you want to say in closing?
No, I mean, I hope I was able to give everybody a perspective, a reality. I was there. And, for the haters, you're always going to hate. For the jealous people, you're always going to be jealous. And I really don't care. Be jealous. Fuck you. I don't really care.
All right, man. Well, once again, Lewis, I appreciate you doing this with me.
Okay, Jess, you take care. Regards
right,
to the family. Bye-bye.
All right, man. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate all the questions and the comments and for watching the channel. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and keep following American Made. I appreciate it.